I want to share with you guys how to prophesy, or a principle, a key to prophesying. We find this in Romans chapter 12, verse 6, where it says, "If prophesying is your gift, then prophesy according to your measure of faith," or according to faith. What is faith? Faith is spelled R-I-S-K. It means you're willing to take a risk. It means you're willing to say something or do something, and you might look like a complete idiot because you're totally wrong. Many times when I prophesy over people, I feel like I'm standing in my underwear. I'm vulnerable because I don't know anything about anybody, these people standing in front of me. But as I trust God and I step out by faith, He begins to fill my mouth, and then words of life, words of strengthening and encouraging comfort will come out. Many times I've gone to places where there's a high level of faith and expectancy, and in those places, people start placing a demand on the gift inside of me, and I'll begin to prophesy and to say things, and I'll just be blown away by the level of revelation that's coming out of my mouth over the lives of people that I don't know anything about. Also, there's times when I'm in places where the people are very cynical or the level of faith is very low. And to get started, many times it's just like walking through mud or cement. It's really hard to get going. But whether you're in a place where there's a lot of faith or where there's no faith, we prophesy by faith. We step out. And there's been some times where I've been in a place where there's very little faith and it's very difficult to get going. But then as I continue to prophesy, as I continue to step forth, all of a sudden faith level in the room shoots up, and it gets a lot easier to deliver a word from God for people. Now, to make this really practical, the way that we prophesy by faith is simply this. Imagine that this were a sweater, and there's just like one string sticking out of it. And I start pulling on that yarn, and I pull on that yarn, and I pull on the yarn, and before you know it, I've got a big ball of yarn, and my sweater's gone. That's the way prophecy works. We get one word, one picture, one feeling, and as we step out and deliver it, God begins to fill our mouth, and we're able to tell more, to give more. We do not prophesy from our own mind, from our own rationale mind. We prophesy from our spirit. But as we begin to prophesy, then God's thoughts many times are like our own thoughts. So we listen to God and the thoughts that are coming into our mind, and we filter those thoughts through the filter of, is this strengthening and encouraging comfort? How can I deliver this? And the more that we prophesy, the more that the muscle, our prophetic muscle, can grow. And that's why it is important that if you want to grow in prophecy, that you go to places where you can step out and grow in delivering a message from God for people. One of the ways that I also illustrate this is that I imagine that there's a big bucket that's with a rope on it, and that you can pull on that rope and you can get a little bit of water on you, or you can just keep pulling on it and get a lot more. The Bible is very clear that Paul says, follow the way of love and eagerly desire spiritual gifts, especially that you may prophesy. So if you want to grow in prophecy, if you want to grow in the gifts of the Spirit, it's very important that you place a demand, that you say, God, I want to prophesy. I want to learn how to prophesy. That you read books, that you go to conferences, that you hang out with people who can sharpen you and help you to grow in the ability to hear God's voice and speak His words, which is prophecy. So again, we do not prophesy by feeling or signs and wonders, although those things can happen, but the way that we prophesy is by faith. We step up to the plate and we say, okay, God, fill my mouth, and as we begin to speak, a prophetic flow can begin to come out of our mouth, kind of like turning on a hot water faucet that at the beginning is cold and it might not get going, but as it continues to flow, it can get very hot and it can flow very fast. So in the same way, the hardest part of prophesying is starting, is speaking the words, the images, the things that we feel that God is saying. And the more that we do it, the easier it becomes. Just like playing a guitar. The beginning is very hard. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. So I just want to encourage you guys, if you want to grow in the gift of prophecy, if you want to grow in the gifts of the Spirit, and say, God, I want to learn. I want to grow. Find a safe place. Find people who can help you learn, and then go for it. And you'll be amazed how God can speak to you and through you. I love to prophesy because I have seen many people's lives changed and impacted by words that come from God through me. And there's nothing greater than knowing God and being used by Him.